2015 was kind of a culmination of 2 or 3 years. I mean, we started out with a drought, going into drought in the Northwest in 2013 early on, before the Douglas Complex fires, which burned considerable acres and took a considerable amount of time and toll on the district. 14, while we didn't have any major fires in the district, there was definitely fires around the state, and a lot of our folks are involved in those actions as well, which was also a very long season, and we had a lot of fires in 14. We also were in the drought. The drought continued, and then coming into 15, that was just on the heels of all those other 2 years, and so we went into the season early. We had some fires in May and June, and ended up putting people on early. Again, stretching those folks, our folks, as well as landowners and other agencies around the area, on keeping a handle on those fires.
So I showed up. We had fire established in a logging unit, Cinco de Mayo. We had some pretty strong winds up on top of the hill. I'd say gusts to 20, 25 at times. It was blowing the fire around pretty good. It had already blown over the top and was backing down the other side of the unit. And that unit that the fire started in was fell and bucked, but it had been fell and bucked fairly earlier in the year, several months before. And so that really contributed to the dryness of the fuels and to kind of the fire spread, I think. And then once it got over the other side, it was just backing, but it was backing at a pretty good rate down the hill. A big factor for getting around that fire was getting resources in there to put the fire out. That time of year, we don't really carry that many resources. It had been an extremely dry spring. We'd spent a lot of time looking at the numbers, but, really, for the most part, there wasn't a lot we were going to change at that point. But from then on, we really started picking up quite a few fires. Things were hit and miss, but we knew we were probably in for a long summer.
Creek air attack, Corn Creek IC on white.
Corn Creek air attack, go ahead.
And our winds are starting to switch down here in the canyon, just heads up.
Yeah, we got an eyeball on there. Still got Steve working the left flank. Once it's got up to the top, it's starting to run out of some of that topography and just burning in the older brush field up top here.
Yeah, I was second or third on scene to that. Josh Esterbrook was the initial attack on that. And yeah, it was a warm day. I think it hit almost 100 that day in early June, which is fairly unusual for us. Once again, still hadn't seen much for rain. Drought conditions had worsened. But that day we saw not what we had seen in May, which was the slash and things burning, but what we were seeing was those dead grasses on the south slopes, the brush component, all that stuff was burning and consuming. It was dirty burn on the edges where it was flanking burn, but when it was burning with a head on it moving up the hill, it burned pretty darn well. It went to over 100 acres there.
By mid-June, the association finished securing the Corn Creek Fire and moved toward preparing for the remainder of the fire season. Seasonal employees were hired and the training was completed as the district geared up for an anticipated busy summer. By July 1st, the association had already suppressed 47 fires, which burned 271 acres, well above the 10-year average of 19 fires and 50 acres. As the month progressed, conditions across the district were continuing to deteriorate. DFPA and local fire departments continued to run daily on small fires throughout the district, stopping many challenging fires. By the end of July, meteorologists were calling for a period of very hot and dry conditions, with temperatures exceeding 100 degrees and humidities reading in the lower teens. To gear up for these conditions, all days off were canceled, and the staffing hours for initial attack resources and detection were extended. As the forecasted conditions developed as predicted, the district entered a period of extreme fire danger, to an extent not seen locally in quite some time. Though fire managers knew the conditions were going to be challenging, no one quite expected what was going to take place over the 3-day period of July 28th through July 30th.
Clear alert, natural cover fire, dispatch block 7.
Dispatch 11 Hotel, just off the tree farm, eastbound to a reported fire.
When I got on scene, fire was, there was 3 separate actual fires that had started off the highway. 2 of them had basically burned together quite quickly, and then there was another one just up the road, up the highway, probably 300 or 400 yards, I'm guessing, that was also burning up the hill.
One other issue is going to be possibly spotting across the river here, but keeping an eye on it right now.
The column was actually blowing across the river and the highway, and I kept looking at that, thinking, no, there's no way it can spot that far today. And but I kept, every circle I made around the fire, I was watching across the river, and sure enough, probably 15 minutes into the initial attack, it did spot across the river.
Yeah, we got a spot fire across the river in a unit that's quarter to half anchor right now. I got all 3 helicopters working that at this point.
I mean, it was a going fire, that's for sure. Very quickly, as soon as any ember landed anywhere on the slash, it was immediately starting a fire and spreading with pretty good intensity.
In my mind, we could catch the one spot fire okay. It looked like dozer ground, and the crews were working their way over to it. And then, a short time after, I started seeing multiple spots in the same unit, and knew then at that point we were going to have to kind of expand our way of thinking and go to kind of just flanking that stuff across the river.
Just kind of tried to hold on to it where we could. Got some trail constructed, and about 2 in the morning did a little bit of back burning off of that fire line just to kind of get everything tied up tight. And even at that point, at 2 in the morning, we were getting embers blowing across the trail and starting small spot fires and that kind of stuff. So it was a little touch and go there that evening.
The spot fire is really what dictated the cable crossing. I knew in my mind we were going to need a fire team to handle the situation. It was at that point probably 500 or 600 acres and making a significant run.
My contribution was to provide a fire behavior forecast for the 30th for the ODF Team 3 coming in.
As ODF Incident Manager Team 3 assumed command of the cable crossing fire on the morning of July 30th, DFPA resources turned their focus back to their initial attack responsibilities, and within hours, a new fire near Milo took their complete attention.
Unbeknownst to me that I wrote the forecast for the cable crossing fire, but I actually lived it on Stouts Creek.
Air attack is being requested for the structure fire at 995 Stouts Creek Road.
Douglas Dispatch 167, arrival of fire, approximately 2 acres headed up the hill.
We knew it was going to be a bad day. We knew we were going to have trouble. We had met with the crews that morning, told them anchor and flank, let's not get out in front of anything. In my 18-year career, we'd never seen conditions like that really on the district.
And we're smoke showing we're 6 miles out. Looks like they got a little bit of steam behind it here, so we'll let you know how we do, and we're going to assume Stouts Creek air attack.
Come on scene. Had about a 2-acre fire burning away from the point of origin up the hill. It was holding pretty well there at the road above the fire, what we called the Conley Road. Things ramped up fairly quick. I felt pretty well that we held our own for about an hour. We weren't really gaining anything, but we were keeping pace with the fire.
Right now it's bumped up to a mid-slope road, and got 2 helicopters working it now, and we're just going to keep an eye out for spot fires. Let's go ahead and keep all that aircraft order that I placed, keep it coming, and if we can get that up here on station, we'll be in pretty good shape here shortly.
Looking across the canyon, I noticed some fires about a half a mile up the ridge on the east side of the canyon, and that's when things really started going bad on us.
Having to pull back multiple spots across the line.
And looking up the hill, and 500 to 1,000 feet up the hill is another spot fire already 5 acres in size, and I said, okay, it's time.
Putting it 40 acres, 2 spot fires across the creek. We're going to be lucky just to hang on to what we got on some flanks, Melvin. Conditions pretty severe.
Okay, Pat, keep everyone safe there, but should we go ahead and order a team?
It went from raining ash and debris around the homes and where we were anchored in at, to all of a sudden being clear air, and the fire was breathing.
As the fire really gained its intensity and really blew up on us, you could really feel the shift in fire activity. I was down at the Coleman residence, which is the last residence there on the road, and it kind of a little bit of a calm there. You know, things got real quiet, and everybody knew, you know, things were starting to deteriorate on us really quick.
200 to 300 acres, fires making some pretty decent short duration crown runs. Say here with the real estate and where it's going to go, I'd estimate this thing's got the potential to go 2,000 to 3,000 acres. That
night, that fire had traveled about 5 miles, through the drainage and to the top of East Fork of Stouts Creek. Even nightfall came, and that thing still had real heavy active burning. You could tell it was moving through the canyon there.
After the Stouts Creek fire blew up, DFPA ordered an incident management team from the Oregon Department of Forestry to lead the suppression efforts on the Stouts Creek fire. ODF Incident Management Team 1 assumed command of the Stouts Creek fire on July 31st and went into unified command with the Oregon State Fire Marshal's Office and the Umpqua National Forest. Before command of the Stouts Creek fire was returned to DFPA, an additional incident management team from the Oregon Department of Forestry and a Type 3 incident management team from Florida Forest Service spent time on the fire.
That the unified command worked really well. The leadership of the agencies, Oregon Department of Forestry, Douglas Forest Protective Agency, the Forest Service, and the Bureau of Land Management, leadership worked very hard together to come up with having mutually similar objectives and actually devised plans for how we could meet those objectives that were suitable for all partners.
The Stouts Creek fire went on to burn 26,452 acres. 14,251 of those acres was on the U.S. Forest Service, and 12,201 acres was on DFPA protected land, including 5,737 acres of private industry land, 5,544 acres of BLM, and 920 acres of small private holdings. Industrial landowners and operators played a huge role in the suppression efforts on both the Cable Crossing fire and the Stouts Creek fire. On the Stouts Creek fire alone, a landowner group consisting of 15 overhead personnel and 40 pieces of equipment created 28 miles of fire line along the west flank in only 5 days. Altogether, industrial operators on the Stouts Creek fire were credited with creating 38 miles of dozer line and/or contingency line and prepared 21 miles of existing roads, which were used as fire trails. While the incident management teams worked on the Cable Crossing fire and the Stouts Creek fire, DFPA continued to respond to and suppress new fires. While the teams were in place on the district, DFPA suppressed an additional 30 fires that burned 10 acres.
And so our IA was pretty, still getting taxed, still getting used, and that's the reason to bring in those teams. When it becomes more than we can handle, we still have an IA responsibility. That's what we're good at. That's what we know.
2015 was a busy summer for DFPA. Crews responded to 383 calls, which resulted in 122 fires and 14,383 acres burned on the district. While lightning accounted for 25 fires, which burned 2 acres, human-caused fires were the major problem, as 97 fires burned 14,381 acres. The historic 2015 fire season finally came to an end on October 26th, as cooler temperatures and wetting rains returned to the Umpqua Valley, diminishing the threat of new starts. Even after fire season ended, work continued on both the Cable Crossing fire and the Stouts Creek fire, as the payment team assigned to these fires paid the millions of dollars it took to suppress the fires. DFPA would like to thank the many landowners, operators, fire departments, and numerous local, county, state, and federal agencies that assisted the association through the historic 2015 fire season. Without the continued cooperation from these many groups and agencies, the 2015 fire season could have been much worse.